Welcome to the center of the universe and the home of the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. This is the X's and Argos podcast with Ben Grant and JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos postgame reaction podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. The Toronto Argonauts hold off the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 14-11 in a game that came right down to the wire. Ben Grant, joined as always by JB. We will wrap it up for you, go through everything we saw, little analysis, little immediate reaction, and we're going to talk a lot about this defense that was just absolutely outstanding tonight, holding the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to 4 first-half points, 7 second-half points, and even though the offense stalled at the end of the game, they were able to do just enough to get the Argos that win. Before we get into our recap and analysis, I want to tell you about Something in the Water Brewing. This is your chance this week, Saturday. The Argos are playing the Ottawa Redblacks. It's the last regular season home game. You've got to get out to Something in the Water Brewing. The game starts at 3 o'clock. Get down to Something in the Water for when they open. Enjoy a beer, have some Longbow Pale Ales, try any of their award-winning beers, and then make your way over to BMO Field for the Argos game. It's going to be a great game. Started off the right way by going to Something in the Water Brewing. Okay, JB, let me just, before we get into anything here, just what's your initial thought on this game? This one was a little bit all over the place. We both thought it would be a close Argos win. I don't think any of us thought, or either of us thought, we were talking about 14-11.
No, they never win games under 20. So look, I thought it was a fantastic game. I thought they went in on the road against a team that is probably the best in the CFL, and the defense came up elite. I thought that they went punch for punch with them. Their game plan was to get that to quarterback and to keep Oliveira under control, and they did both. There are things to work on offensively, but I think anytime you can go and, go punch for punch with the Grey Cup favorite at home with something to win for, that has to give the team an incredible amount of confidence, and it has to make the East, a little bit concerned, including Ottawa.
Yeah, Ottawa's got their own problems to deal with too, but certainly they're looking at this saying, oh man, look what we got coming down the road. This was an outstanding game by the defense. And before we get into, I think we'll start with defensive analysis because they have earned it certainly today. Usually we start on the offensive side of the ball. But before I even get to that, I want to highlight how difficult a place to play this is. Winnipeg, coming into today, had only lost 4 home games. This is including regular season and postseason. 4 home games since the pandemic. Think about that. Like, the Argos have been outstanding at home, but they've lost 7 home games, not including postseason, 9 if you include the postseason as well. Losing 4 home games just tells you how difficult a place that is to play. And Toronto came in there in a game that mattered to Winnipeg. They needed this because now they're under pressure. Saskatchewan is breathing down their necks. Saskatchewan is just a couple points back. They've got BC this week, and that's a winnable game for them. And then they close hosting Calgary. That is certainly a winnable game for them. Winnipeg might be in a situation where they're going into Montreal the last week of the season, desperately needing to win in order to clinch first place. So they wanted this game. There's no doubt about that. And Toronto, right from the word go, took the lead and never once gave it up. They scored on their opening drive and then sat on it and wouldn't let Winnipeg put up enough points. Let's get into that defensive analysis I talked about. Do you give most of the credit here to the defensive line, to the coaching staff, to the DBs? Like, it's hard to ignore 7 sacks. That's a pretty lopsided number when you look at the score sheet. 7 sacks for the Argos, none for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Is this a game that you give full credit to the defensive line for?
Yeah, and probably full credit to the health and recovery staff as well. The line is healthy. McManus looks like he's 100% back healthy. This is what they look like when they were all healthy earlier in the season. Ceresna and Parrish are just a load to handle in terms of the power game. And then you have or a Malade who's just so fast, and you think you have him, and then he jumps into another gap. Robbie Smith is playing well. Being able to have Brinkman back, being able to roll in Holly, being able to roll in guys. That's the biggest. I think that's really the biggest thing. This is the line that was healthy at the beginning of the year. That also really went after teams in the beginning of the year. It has to be concerning to teams to look at the depth of this line, because when McManus is healthy, cleaning up screens and cleaning up quarterback runs, it is something to behold.
It was really interesting to see the creative way in which they were used tonight. You had Brinkman sometimes lined up as a defensive end. I thought that was kind of interesting because Oliveira's he's not a fast back, he's a power back. And so without that fear of him really escaping to the outside, you could put some of your heavier guys on the outside. We've seen them do that with Serezna a lot because he can play that spot, but you don't usually see Brinkman lined up on the edge. And we saw that a few times tonight. They used Arimolade as a linebacker a lot and had a 3-man line with Arimolade coming from somewhere. They didn't know where. And I thought that was really cool. And then the rotation that you spoke of, it allowed guys like Ralph Holly, Jared Brinkman, Williams in there as well to be fresh. And you're constantly, those old linemen aren't coming out. Like Kolinkowski's not getting a break. And so every snap, he's got a fresh Ralph Holly coming off the bench. He comes in for a couple of plays. And then it's Brinkman. Like it looked like that. And I felt like they really took advantage of Liam Dobson, the Winnipeg's left guard. He had a struggle tonight. Serezna beat him for a sack. He was beaten for, I think, by my count, I saw 3 sacks where they took advantage of that same left guard and were in the backfield immediately. But they did it without having to send the house. That's what I loved about it. I only saw them send more than a 5-man blitz once. They may have done it more than that, but I only noticed watching it live them sending sending the house one time. And to be able to get pressure, sending 4, sending 5, and on a couple occasions sending 3, that's huge, and it makes everyone else's job so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, the rotation keeps guys fresh, and the fact is they have 4 defensive linemen who are all skilled enough to beat their guy one-on-one. So it makes it a huge problem because the offensive line cannot even think about chipping and getting second level and going hunting McManus. They're just trying to keep the house from burning down. And it totally changes your offensive philosophy when your offensive lineman cannot explode and go hunting linebackers, but have to, you're just trying to keep your quarterback upright. And they were very good, largely at not over pursuing and keeping contained. A couple times they blew it on Caleros, but I thought that this combination of power and depth, where you have different guys with different skill sets, but it's a very powerful line. It's a run stop defensive line that can also pass rush, and that is a rarity.
And I'm excited to see where you go for player of the game later on in the podcast. We'll close with player of the game and play of the game because we're both going to be on the defensive side of the ball almost certainly tonight. The play of the game will almost certainly be on the defensive side of the ball, but there's a lot of praise to go around. Let's talk about some of the highlights. Like the defensive linemen, I think we've mentioned almost all of them by name. They were outstanding tonight. They were the guys that got sacks. You had Serezna with a sack, you had Parrish with a sack. Milton had a sack as well on a blitz. Brinkman and Milton's sack turned into a fumble. It was a sack fumble play. Brinkman with a sack, Arimolade with 2 sacks, Ralph Holly with a sack. That D line,
Holly with a great celebration.
Yes, yes. Well, how would you like? It was sort of like a guitar move. Is that what was going on there?
Yeah, I think that's like a Winnipeg like banjo bowl thing.
Okay. I didn't pick up on that. It looked to me like, he's a Detroit guy. I thought that was maybe I don't know, some sort of
I think it's a Winnipeg thing. I'll have to double check that.
Okay. I thought it might be some sort of Motown thing, but yeah, I don't know where that came from, but it was he really got into it. But he had such a game because it wasn't just that sack. He knocked Caleros to the ground a number of different times and was all over the backfield. Like Caleros in that first half, had to get rid of that ball so early because there was pressure, was closing in on him. He gave up 5 first half sacks. He could have given up 9. There was that much pressure. So yeah, Holly was causing a lot of that disruption. He was taking on double teams a lot, and that was opening up other guys too. So yeah, great game from him. But what I saw too was that all of that pressure generated by the D line meant that McManus could go out and do his job. And so McManus wasn't having to come up and join the pass rush all the time. He could scrape, he could search for stuff, and he ended up leading the defense in tackles with 8 and got in on a number of big plays, including at the end there, that very last Winnipeg offensive play of the game was McManus that forced Collaros out of bounds, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was indeed.
Yeah, and that, maybe the biggest stop of any of them. He had a knockdown in there too. So, yeah, heck of a game from him. What did you think of the performance of Isaac Darkangelo? He was put in a pretty tough spot today because as a will linebacker, we knew that he was going to have a lot of pass coverage responsibility on Brady Oliveira, who's used a lot as a receiver, but he also had to maintain his gap integrity and be able to stop Oliveira in the run game. It's a lot to ask of a first-year player who doesn't have a lot of experience. How did you feel he filled in for Fraser Sopik today?
Yeah, really well. I think I wouldn't say that he necessarily flashed, but I think that's what you want from your will is I think ideally you don't actually notice who your will is because they're just kind of doing their job and they're not being picked upon, at least in this defense. So, yeah, I thought he played well, and I thought he clearly wasn't a weakness that that the other team thought that they could pick on. He finished second in tackles. It's great. I mean, I think it's for a first year player. I mean, he's shown himself to be a legitimate CFL starter.
The only mistake I saw from him, he had one missed tackle that wasn't too bad because it only ended up generating 2 extra yards for the receiver. But the only mistake other than that I saw was on Brady Oliveira's only really big run of the night that went for 26 yards. It was in the first quarter. Darkangelo had B-gap responsibility, and he didn't get there fast enough that allowed Neufeld to climb and seal him inside. And then Oliveira had nobody in front of him. He took off up the middle for a big gain. I'm going to just pause here because I got to ask my broadcast partner, Mike Hogan here, if he wants to tell our listeners anything about next Saturday.
Oh, nice. Hi, JB. Let's see. What do we have? We have Saturday, 3:00 kickoff. Ottawa's in town. If you haven't got your lower bowl tickets yet, get them now because they're almost gone. It's rather large. It's pure later tackle hunger night. Bring some food stuff for the Schultz. For Schultz in his memory, because Chris didn't brag about very much. He wasn't proud of a lot of things, but he was really proud of his association with this charitable campaign. But most importantly, come, be loud. It's an opportunity, potentially, depending on what happens on Monday, to clinch first place, or second place rather, in the East. So home field is important. Come, bring your voice, be loud. And now more dining and dancing with Ben Grant. Bye, JB. Bye.
Thanks, Hogan. Bye. So yeah, you heard the man. Get your tickets, and it should be a really nice crowd. If it was already building to be a nice crowd, I'm sure. But add to that this huge win over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's going to generate some excitement in the city. So yeah, make sure you get down there. But back to what we were talking about. Yeah, Darkangelo, that one play. Other than that, I thought he played an outstanding game. And when you've got those two levels, we didn't really get a chance to talk too much about the secondary during the broadcast, and you barely got to see them, I'm sure, during the TV coverage because so much was taken care of up front. That front 7 was just doing their job, and that made the back end so much easier. The only plays we saw deep downfield, there was one deep post route to Lawler, and then there was a pass interference penalty late in the game charged to Milton, who I thought looked like he was in pretty good coverage on like a chair route, a double move. What did you see on that play?
Yeah, I thought. I was. I'm less enraged because the Argos won, but I was furious for a bunch of reasons. Let's just start. Reason number one, it's a garbage call. The Winnipeg receiver cut inside. The ball was not near him, and like a basketball guy driving to the hoop and looking for a bailout call, he sort of spasmed like he had been shot, and Milton was just standing there like, what is happening here? The ball landed behind them, nowhere near them. and the flag was thrown. And I'm like, the referees just have to be way less quick to throw a flag because you're talking about a huge flag there. You're talking about the ball is moving all the way up to the one. If you're going to throw in the flag in the end zone, you better be 100% sure you saw PI. So that made me enraged. The TV commentary didn't even replay the play. They just kind of moved on and continued to sort of celebrate Winnipeg in an evening of Winnipeg love. So that enraged me. Um, and then lastly, we didn't have a challenge to challenge it because unfortunately, coach had thrown it earlier on something that caught his eye that was probably a little too subtle to win a challenge. So it was kind of a threefold enragement. But thankfully, it didn't cost the game.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of those things. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about the Milton penalty. I thought it could have been accidental pass interference. They did kind of get tangled up. We saw it before. Like clearly, Milton had no intention of interfering with Lawler. He was twisting around trying to find the ball. He was in pretty good position, I thought. But yeah,
I thought he was really calm. I thought he was really calm. I don't think there's any way that even with the command center, I don't think there's any way that holds up.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance had it been reviewed, it would have been spotted at the one the way it was. I think maybe you get the 10-yard accidental pass interference. I think they might have compromised at that, but there wasn't an option. As you said, they threw the flag earlier on what looked like an RPO that kind of went wrong for Winnipeg. And so here's how I saw that play. And I think Coach Dinwiddie was right, but like we've said many times, being right doesn't necessarily mean you'll win the challenge. It's got to be very clear. And we've seen over the years, Coach Dinwiddie's not great at challenges. Actually, he's pretty bad at challenges, but it's not that he's seeing it wrong. What he's seeing is correct. Like the rule, the way the rules are written, he's correct. But those plays just don't get overturned. And what we saw in that play, it was an RPO where Collaros had the choice to hand it off or keep it and throw. He decided to keep it, but in an RPO, your linemen are assuming it's a run play. So his linemen are blocking downfield for Oliveira. Collaros pulled it, and what he thought he was going to see right away wasn't there, and he had to roll out and extend the play. RPOs have to be released immediately. Otherwise, your linemen are going to go downfield. They're blocking. That's their job. But because he rolled out, his lineman got 3 or 4 yards downfield before Collaros let it go. The problem is, like watching it on the replay and getting a chance to have seen that replay a couple times now. Yeah, the linemen were probably 3-4 yards downfield, but it's so tight. It's a mess of bodies. They didn't really have anything to do with the play on that side of it. He's correct in that you're not allowed to do that. RPOs have to be immediate. There were linemen a couple yards downfield, but that's just never going to get overturned. Like as soon as I saw that flag thrown, I thought, well, this is not going to be a challenge he wins unless there's something I wasn't seeing, and it turned out there wasn't. So I really didn't like that challenge. At that stage of the game, it wasn't a massive play or anything either.
It was a weird call, yeah, I can't say I support it.
Let's talk about the offense. So that first drive of the game, that made it seem like it was going to be the kind of game we thought we were going to see, a 33-31 kind of finish. Toronto looked outstanding on that opening drive. They had a couple plays.
Already tried on brand new golden fleeces.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah, you thought for sure we were going to be hitting all sorts of numbers here. The thing I liked about it is there were new plays, stuff I hadn't seen before. That touchdown pass to Unger, they've never run that play. They were in tight. Usually when you're running bunch in tight, what you've got is something happening on the outside. There's all sorts of space for crisscrossing, things on the outside. Usually you see floods to one side of the field or other. That's not what happened. They had Kevin Mittal push up field and sit in the middle of the field, thus keeping the safety back and getting the linebackers to expand. Meanwhile, Ungerer came from the outside on a drag route. Nobody was able to stick with him on that. Kelly found him, great pass protection. Ungerer was just able to walk into the end zone for a touchdown. I loved everything about that opening drive. I had no idea at that point that the Argos would only score 7 more points for the remaining 55 minutes of the game. I was expecting it to continue like that, but I thought Winnipeg did some pretty good adjusting, and I want to give them credit for adjusting both offensively and defensively at the half and really forcing Toronto to change things up. And Toronto did defensively, but they were never really able to change things up and get their offense going after Winnipeg settled down.
No, and excuse me, losing Carey really hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, and talking to Coach Dinwiddie after the game, it sounds like his back spasms. He didn't want to speculate on how long this was going to be, how long this was going to keep Carey out, or whether it's a long-term thing or not. It didn't seem like the kind of thing where he's going to be on the shelf for a long time. That said, he's such an important piece. Maybe this is something that goes into next week. Maybe he sits out. I don't know. The Argos can certainly afford to rest, and now they've clinched a playoff spot. At the very least, you're going to the playoffs. He's such an important part of this, and you saw the difference when he came off the field. It's not the same Argos team. I love McMahon. I love Adebaboye. I think they're great backs, but what makes them so effective is Carey. It's that change to having all three guys, and when you've only got McMahon and Adebaboye, it's not quite the same. What do you make of the third down struggles? I've maintained for a while the Argos need to find a short yardage quarterback, a short yardage specialist. They don't have one on the roster. I like Cam Dukes as a backup quarterback. I like Nick Arbuckle as a backup quarterback. Neither one of them is a short yardage specialist. Chad Kelly's the best short yardage specialist they have on the team, and you just don't want your starting quarterbacks taking shots. He doesn't want to be out there taking shots on like 7 quarterback sneaks a game. He ended up getting credited with 9 rushes today. I think 5 or 6 of those were on quarterback sneaks. You can't keep that up. And it cost them a touchdown, if not 2 touchdowns this game.
Yeah. I mean, not to feed a fed horse, but we have, I think we have long discussed this as the primary weakness of the offense. They haven't really been able to find a solution internally, whether it is, I don't know, a different arrangement of the offensive line, or maybe somebody on the bench who is able to kind of road grade a little better than one of the starters. Moving the ball down the line doesn't work. I don't think consistently. Dukes is not the guy to carry it. We certainly don't want Kelly taking shots like he did in the end zone there. Yeah, I know. Look, I agree. I thought that they would go looking for somebody this season. They don't feel to the way we do about it. I mean, it is a flaw. I don't know what to say other than they clearly don't. I guess they can still go looking for a quarterback out there. I don't know why they don't. It's pretty glaring, and they're not getting any better at it. So, I'm kind of worn down complaining about it.
Yeah, well, it's the only real glaring hole, right? Like, this is a good roster. It's not the depth that we saw from last year's team. It's a really good starting roster. You look at every positional group. I'm really happy with where everybody's at today. The secondary had a terrific game. Linebackers play great. The D-line was outstanding. We know how good that O-line is. They kept Chad Kelly upright. We know what Chad Kelly is. We love the 3-headed monster in the backfield. The receivers are great. Special teams, you got the best returner in the league, the best punter in the league, the best kicker in the league. This is a great football team. The one piece they don't have is a short yardage quarterback. And in the CFL, it comes up a lot. Again, Chad Kelly, 5 quarterback sneaks tonight. Cameron Dukes with 2 quarterback sneaks tonight. That's a lot of plays that didn't go very well for the Toronto Argonauts, and this game would have been out of reach. It should have been 20-3, 20-4, I think, at one point. And instead, it was a tight game that came down to the spot of a football at the end. So, yeah, I don't know. To me, that's a big hole.
They have to fix it.
Yeah. And if you can't, if you're dead set against it, you just can't find. There's no one that we can bring in. We don't feel good about that. Then we got to stop quarterback sneaking. There's got to be something else then. Okay, so what is the solution? If you don't have a guy that can come in and do it, it can't be Chad Kelly getting hit in the head every time there's a quarterback sneak. So what will it be then? Are you going to run dive plays at a pistol? Are you going to throw the ball? Are you going to do something else? Like, there's got to be another answer. It can't just be failing to convert quarterback sneaks. And I don't want to turn this into, we've talked about this topic before, and we're coming off a huge Argos win. Let's not turn this into a negative podcast, but the offense was a problem after that first drive tonight. And I think a lot of it came down to those short yardage conversions. This game's a blowout, if not for those 3rd-and-1 stops. But, Winnipeg could say the same thing. They had 2 missed field goals. They had a stop on the 1-yard line of their own. So it's a problem that I guess goes around everywhere. And they, you see what they are without Chris Streveler.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
That matters,
you
right?
see what a difference, having a guy like Streveler makes.
Yeah, no, that's it. Like with Streveler, does Winnipeg win this game? Maybe. They certainly score that first touchdown. So maybe this ends up being a very different ball game. Who knows? Let's get into the receiver play. I wasn't very impressed with the receivers today. I saw what I thought looked to be a drop from Tavares, which is so rare from him.
Yeah, that was really weird. They only flashed the replay, and I didn't quite get it, because it looked like it was right in his hands.
Yeah, it looked to me like he was in traffic, but no one knew where the ball was except for Tavares. He jumped up. It looked to me like it hit him in the hands. We didn't get a replay of that either. We just saw it live, and it looked like a drop. And then Unger had a drop on a deep comeback that we've seen him catch 100 different times, and it wasn't quite bang bang. Like I know his coverage was there. He did get hit, but he had dropped it before the contact came. And those guys just don't drop footballs, and so that was a little bit unsettling. Just mistakes that against a team like Winnipeg, in Winnipeg, you can't make mistakes like that. You can't have drops. And I think what saved them is that the turnovers were limited to like turnovers on downs. There weren't picks, there weren't fumbles, but those drops you'd really like to clean up as the team heads towards the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened to Coxie on that final, fly along the rail. It looked like he wasn't running hard all the way through it.
Well, he was in tough tonight, and I got to give a lot of credit to Ford as being maybe the best corner in the league this year. He had Coxie shut down. It is not easy to shut down DeMonte Coxie. He's an excellent receiver, and he was struggling tonight. He have 1 catch on 2 targets for 6 yards? Like that is a terrific job from an outstanding corner. I knew that was going to be a tough matchup for him. I didn't foresee it being that tough where he's limited to 6 yards, 1 catch. But yeah, this Winnipeg secondary is good. I just felt there were opportunities to take advantage of the middle of the field, especially when Nichols came out. Because they're already missing Brandon Alexander back there at the safety spot. Who was in for it? It was Jake Kelly in at safety. Second-year player, a 2023 draft pick who doesn't really have that much starting experience. I think he played some halfback. And then Dietrich Nichols goes down, and that middle of the field should have some vulnerability to it. They took a couple of shots, and nothing was able to hit. I'm not sure Tommy Neal's the guy, though. Like, they sent Neal up the seam. Like, they got to find a way to make something else happen in the middle of the field. Clearly, that was going to be a vulnerable area, and they just didn't find a way to exploit it.
Yeah, I did not love the passing game strategy tonight. I don't know entirely what the strategy was, but there didn't seem to be a kind of cohesive plan for attacking Winnipeg. And, there were definitely some flashes of bad Chad, taking dagger shots that had no real chance of converting. It was not a banner night for the offense.
Before we get to our players of the game and our plays of the game, I just want to wrap up with a little bit of special teams talk. Janarian Grant had a couple of nice returns tonight, but he had that costly fumble early on. The defense bailed him out. Was he trying to do too much? His first trip back to Winnipeg against his former team, I don't know if there were some hard feelings there, but they didn't want to bring him back. He ends up signing in Toronto. Was he trying to do too much? Is that what happened on that play?
I don't think so. I think that was just bad luck. Now he has shown he's a very good returner, but occasionally he puts the ball on the ground. I think you just have to live with that. That's the cost of having him on your team. And I didn't think that. I thought that was just kind of a bad break in terms of that play. I think he's still going to take the good returns with the occasional mistake.
There were a couple plays that I thought the old command center would have taken a look at. One was that Janarian Grant fumble. And so what happened is he got tripped up initially, and then as he was stumbling, he was hit and that caused the ball to be jarred free. There was one replay angle from the end zone where I swear it looks like his forearm touches just before that ball gets released, but we never really got a close look at it because it wasn't reviewed. That was one where I felt like it's on a turnover. Like maybe they just take a close look. They didn't. The other one where I thought might have been reviewed because Winnipeg's was Chad Kelly's quarterback sneak. I don't actually think he got in, but I'm just surprised they didn't take a closer look at that, because had he had the ball in his right hand, he definitely would have crossed the plane. The ball was in his left, though. We never got to see the opposite side of the field. Maybe there wasn't a shot over there. Maybe they didn't have that angle.
Yeah, I didn't understand that explanation when they said the command center will review because this is almost a scoring play and almost all scoring plays are reviewed. I'm like, where's that rule from?
No, that's a rule. That is a rule. And we've seen that come up over the last couple of weeks a few times. Like Edmonton had that happen to them, and that really altered their game.
But then why wasn't Kelly reviewed?
Well, that's the thing. So if that's the case, if you're going to review all almost scoring plays, then you should review all almost scoring plays. And Chad Kelly, at most, was half a foot from the end zone.
Yeah.
Why not take another look at that? I just feel like, no, maybe they simply didn't have that angle, because I couldn't tell from the one angle I saw, but I knew that a lot more of his body was across the line than I initially thought. So I wouldn't mind having taken another look at that. But
I can say to Winnipeg fans, the command center gave you your dollar's worth of trying to find a way to change that spot.
I don't believe that. I don't think there's any agenda from the command center.
Long review.
Well, because I think it's so hard. I wanted to talk about special teams.
But if it's not hard, it's not hard.
Okay, let's finish talking about special teams. Then let's end with that last play, and then we'll get to our players of the game and stuff. So
don't try and diffuse my command center heat.
I don't know why you're so angry at the command center right now. I thought they were fine. I just wanted I wanted an explanation. But let's talk about the special teams play. How about getting Chavez out there first game as a pro long snapper, and he was fantastic. Everything looked to be on point.
Perfect.
Yeah, great long snapping. It was the other side that was missing field goals. Winnipeg had problems. Their snaps sailed a little bit. They had one that sailed right, one that sailed left. Is that right? Or yeah, one sailed right and hit the upright, one sailed left and missed. Those were huge plays, and they weren't perfect snaps. And meanwhile, Chavez did a great job getting that ball back there, was reliable. And I was wondering, that last play, that last punt, you have to wonder, game's on the line, 10 seconds left. You need a clean snap back to that punter. And it was on the money. So, yeah, full marks for him. What a great game from a guy stepping into a tough spot.
What did you think of not kicking for the Rouge?
I would have kicked for the Rouge. Yeah. So at the end of the game, you're up by 2. And, Toronto wanted to pin Winnipeg deep. But I think you let it sail. You go for the Rouge, go up by 3. Yeah, they get the ball at the 40, but they need to score a touchdown to win. And if they leave any time left on the clock, you've got a chance left. So I would have absolutely
it worked out, but I thought that was not what I would have called.
Let's get to that last Winnipeg offensive play. So it's 3rd and 17. I still can't believe what happened there. So 3rd and 17. The D-line did a pretty good job containing Collaros most of the night. There was one run where he got free. Here, they're not really thinking about it because it's 17 yards. They're like, this 50-year-old quarterback is not going to sneak through and run for 17 yards. So they went all out around the outside. He stepped up in the pocket. He's looking downfield because he knows too, like, I'm not running 17 yards. Nothing was there. And the space started to open up. And you could see it. He's like, I got to go. And he took off down the sideline, went to McManus in full pursuit, Amos closing from deep. And he got so much closer than I thought he was going to get. Initially, when he left, I thought, well, he's got 10 yards out there at most. But he kept getting closer and closer to the sticks. He laid out fully. I have watched that replay a bunch of times. I have no idea, no clue where you spot that football. I couldn't even begin to tell you. If you'd spotted it 3 yards short of where they did, I wouldn't have been able to tell you it was wrong. If they'd spotted that for a first down, I couldn't have told you that was wrong either. The only way you could tell in my mind is if they had spider cam on that and they had an overhead of where he went out, what was happening, where the ball was at the time. So I wasn't surprised the command center didn't overturn it, but I don't even have any idea how they spotted that in the first place.
No, I think they spotted a little conservatively because it's so hard to tell when they do that kind of reach out. You're like, well, where, is his foot out of bounds when he was reaching out? it becomes really hard. I think you have to kind of spot that conservatively when people do that kind of diving reach out, because it it's so hard to tell when their foot is out of bounds and when it's not.
And Dinwiddie said post game, like he felt pretty confident that was like 3 yards short. And so he must have been pretty shocked when they spotted it where they did, which was that there's not even a foot, it's like half a foot from being a first down. And if that's a first down, this game ends in a Winnipeg win. I'm almost certain of that. You think about where they were on the field, the time remaining, at the very least, it's a field goal attempt
Yeah,
at the end.
they had really poor camera angles, right? They did not have an overhead cam on that. Like it was almost impossible for there to be any review or really any argument, because you just couldn't see where he went out from the angle they were showing.
And we were wondering if Winnipeg should have challenged that or not, because again, like seeing the replay, like I couldn't see it being overturned. Maybe you save your timeout and use it there. You end up with 40 seconds to try and do something with that football, or 25 seconds or whatever it was to do something with that football at the end. Maybe that's the way they should have gone instead of burning that challenge. But I get why it
Well,
was such a pivotal play.
that's an interesting debate, right? Because I probably lean towards give it a shot. You're at home. The command center, to be honest, is a bit of a coin flip. I like the challenge there.
Let's get to our players of the game and our plays of the game. I had a tough time with this. I could have given it to anyone on the D line. I could have given it to Wynton McManus. I'm going to give this the player of the game to Flo Remilade, because I felt like he made a difference in so many ways. He was pressuring from the outside. He was pressuring from the middle. They lined him up absolutely everywhere. He got a sack with a bull rush as well, not a speed move. When's the last time we saw a Remilade just lock up and push somebody back into the quarterback? And then he ended the game with an interception, just to add one more play to his resume. He was all over the field tonight. This is one that could have gone to just about anyone on the defense. I'm going to give it to Flo.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think he brings something that they don't have when he's healthy. And we saw that at the beginning of the year. He's a perfect complement to the power line that they have. And when he's there and healthy, he makes them so much more lethal because of his ability to get into gaps so quickly, or to chase down quarterbacks. It makes it so hard in your protection to kind of deal with bull rushes, and his speed moves.
And don't forget that he's the one that was credited with that sack to set up 3rd and 17. And I want to shout out Jake Sarezna too. I thought he had a heck of a game. It doesn't always show up the same way in the numbers. These numbers are fine, but he caused way more disruption than his stats will tell you.
Yeah, he played. Yeah, the whole line played really well. That was a good choice. Well, that's great for me, because my player of the game is McManus. A lot of times I don't pick him because it would be boring to have the McManus Player of the Game award. But look, he was unbelievable. He made the stop to win the game. He did that jump over on the short yardage play. That was amazing. He just brings such physicality and energy to the defense when he's feeling 100%. A game like today is why he is the best linebacker in the CFL.
Yeah, I you could certainly give it to McManus. There's no question about that. He was outstanding tonight. We just expect it from Winton, but he looked like Wyndham McManus when he's healthy, as opposed to, coming back off the injury. Didn't quite look like the same guy for those first couple games. He looked it tonight. You could tell what a big game this was for him, and he put everything out there. So yeah, very well deserved. For play of the game, I'm torn between two, and they're both right at the end. And I don't know if it's that Remilade sack or that McManus pushout, but I think I'll give it to Winton, my play of the game. I gave Flo my player of the game. Wyndham McManus pushing Kolaris out at the end there. It's that last little shove. He gave everything he had. He was going full out, and he just gets enough of a hand on him. If he doesn't, I don't know if he has the angle without that shove to stop Kolaris from getting that first down. I don't know how that play ends otherwise, but I think it ends in a Winnipeg first down. And so just for that all-out effort, that full sprint, the strength, the coordination to be able to, in the air, execute that shove out of bounds, to me, that has to be the play of the game. Where are you going for play of the game?
Yeah, and what's probably underrated about that play is, McManus can't just line him up and blow him up because it's a quarterback. And it's the Winnipeg bench. And if he is a step early, and if Calero steps out of bounds and he's standing on the white and he gets drilled into the bench and then the bench goes bananas, that's a flag guaranteed.
What is your play of the game from tonight's
my play of the
Argos
game,
win?
I'm going to go hipster choice here, is Winnipeg choosing not to give Oliveira the ball on their initial goal line attempt against Toronto. I just think the fans and the team feed off Oliveira. You can see in the middle where the game started to go a little soft for Toronto when Oliveira started getting fired up. And I mean, honestly, it's like out of the WWF, you could see the crowd getting into it. You could see the line feeding it off it. You could feel that whole touchdown drive before the nonsensical PI, was Oliveira. And the fact that, they didn't open with him smashing in for a touchdown and the crowd going crazy and him smashing his helmet. And I think that's just a nightmare scenario for Toronto off a muffed return. So I thought that really changed the whole tenor of the game. So thank you, Winnipeg.
The final score, Toronto 14, Winnipeg 11. The next game for the Argos is their last regular season home game of the year. Ottawa at Toronto. It's a 3:00 start. And I want to point that out because it was initially supposed to be a 4:00 game. It's been pushed up to a 3:00 start to accommodate the CTV schedule and the broadcast. So make sure you are not late for that one. Hopefully we'll get to see you at Something in the Water beforehand, and then you can make it on down for the game at BMO Field. It's going to be a great one. Like Mike Hogan said earlier on this podcast, make sure you get out there, be a part of something pretty cool. That'll just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. Toronto 14, Winnipeg 11 for JB. This is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see you.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.